The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
This is a meeting of the Finance Subcommittee, a fiscal year 2024 budget review. I'm joined by my other subcommittee members, the clerk, second member, Councilor Pauline Cormier, and the third member, Peter Angelini. My name is Mark Bedanza. We're going to be conducting a review of the water and sewer budgets as well as the general city budget. I will allow limited commentary from the public as well as comments and questions from other members of the council who are not members of the subcommittee. We do have a quorum of the whole city council here, so I have to read the meeting of the whole notice. This notice for the City Council Committee of the Whole meeting is posted in the event that a quorum of the City Council is present at this standing committee meeting. If less than a quorum of the City Council is present, no committee of the whole meeting shall take place. If a quorum is present, any such meeting shall be restricted to the standing committee agenda items listed above. And that is the case this evening, so we are constrained to the agenda by itself. And with that, if the mayor is here, I'll welcome him and his financial team to give us a budget overview.
I'd like to report being harassed over here.
That's why I don't wear my hair
Oh, I'll make believe I didn't hear that.
Nonetheless, welcome, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming in this evening
Sure.
to brief us, and I'll let you take it away.
David's coming down. Where's David? Anyway, part of our finance team is David LaPlante. Where'd Jim go? Jim Piamarini and Jen Reddington and Wendy Weeks. So we'll take you through this. There's a lot in here. We'll go through it. At any particular point you want to stop us, let us know. But we took this and consolidated it into this.
Nice.
And you could read along, we can read, so I'm not going to read everything, but if there's something you want us to focus on, let me know. All right. How we built the budget, obviously started with a level-funded budget, met with department heads and determined operating needs. Department heads absolutely should be commended for the responsible fiscal management and determining their critical operating needs. And that's an extremely important part of the process. We have approved what each department requested, with the exception of some capital requests, which you know we address through either grants or free cash. This budget is a responsible budget, keeping with the means of the city of Leominster and the process and the model that we've used over time, which is to be on the conservative end of things. We never know what, you just saw the state, $2 billion shot in the first quarter of the year. I mean, who would have ever expected that? And so there are so many unknowns that we really try to stay on the conservative side. Okay, online and searchable is our budget this year. Budget driver analysis, 3-year revenue and expense summary. Now, focus on that 3-year revenue and expense summary. We just went through 3 years of total uncertainty. So that'll make sense as we get into the process, but we did our best. We just put our 3-year revenue and expense summary in there, but it's not, I mean, it's nothing I'd count on in the sense that this has been 3 years of COVID, and the process of hiring new people, the pool of people to hire has gotten smaller. It's more difficult to hire police officers these days, and so what you might find in the salary budget later is transferred to the to overtime budget, which is not reflective of a typical year. The fiscal year 22 year-end budget versus the actual, and the 23 year-to-date budget versus actual, and the 3-year comparison by department. So there you go. There's the 3 years with the increase. General fund by 7.47%. Then you have your water and sewer. Remember, we have a receipts account. We can only spend, our budget can only be what our receipts were for the last year in water and sewer. Correct? Mm-hmm. All right. Then we get into the actual budget functional summary as a percentage of the budget, and you see general government. We broke it all down. I don't know if you have any questions there. It's pretty straightforward. Health insurance. We've been really lucky. We've done very well on the health insurance side. We haven't seen any huge, spikes, and that's really based on usage. And we put
consistent for the last 3 years.
right, pretty consistent. So, and even through COVID, those numbers stayed consistent. So that was a good thing. On the let's see, what was I going to say on debt service? Again, remember we have program in here. The police department short-term borrowing, but we have our expenses in there, and obviously it's on time, on budget. Any questions on this one? That's pretty straightforward. It just takes the data and puts it into a different format. By public safety, educate, whatever it is, we break it all down in this particular slide. Then we get even fancier, and we go to the summary as a percentage of the budget, if that helps anybody with percentages, you know, we take the pie and break it apart. Obviously, you know, education and then public safety is the biggest pieces, and then insurance. That okay? Everybody all right with that? I mean, I know you've been through this already, looking through it, so
times.
this isn't your first time. And then the budget drivers. And we've had some changes, obviously, in public safety, education. So the amount that we got, which was a good thing, two budgets ago, should I say, last budget, actually came home to roost on our side of the budget this year with a larger than expected increase in our net school spending. But we were able to fund, as you'll see in another slide through here, what the school department and the school committee, the superintendent and the administration asked for. So, but we show you here, we'll break it down in terms of what some of the items were, but on public safety, we've remember the plan that we had to kind of phase in the paramedics, and I gotta say, I knew this would be a major improvement in our system in terms of delivering, you know, rapid response assistance, but I could never have dreamt that this would be this successful. And so we've made the next step into the phasing in and not using ARPA funds, because that's how we jump-started it, using ARPA funds. And then we added, on the public safety side, we added a data analysis. We had one at one particular point, and then one of the chiefs decided that, you know, they had done some restructuring and decided that that was a lower priority at the time, but we think it's really a high priority now. And we have better data. The officers record the calls and systems in place. Now we want to be able to extract that to tell us a better story about what's going on day to day, day to month, day to week, day to year. And then then just the last thing.
I was gonna say, the other big bucket in there was that we brought the police overtime onto the budget.
Correct. So the other big, again, just describe that part of it all.
That was when for the last 2 years, we had the appropriation for the police training that they needed to do. So we brought that to be included in the budget this year so that we don't have to go for the appropriation.
Which is ironic, because the state is the one that, you know, came up with the system, but they didn't provide the financial resources to back it up. So this year we had to add 400 and, what was it?
360,000.
So 360,000 we had to add to the budget, you know, to meet the new, you know, criteria. So we were waiting for like some assistance to come in the form of funding, since, you know, they made, these are all the new requirements. So we'll gloss over that for a minute, and we'll move on. You can go to the next slide. Net drivers, Chapter 70 impact. You can explain this. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yep, so we started at the top. The increase in the required net school spending is the $8 million. We took away the Chapter 70 money, and so that's the $1.5 million is the amount that the city is responsible for. And we just broke that out to go down with the other increases. We have the public safety, general government, and it goes all the way down to the $4.4 million, and that's the increase relating to the prior year budget. So we
I just think this is probably a good place to point out that we've had increases of that nature in the past in terms of education.
Yes.
And we've also had ones that are smaller.
Right.
But typically, when we've had smaller ones, we've added or backfilled during the year with money from stabilization or wherever.
Right.
So it's not really, despite the fact that the school budget has grown largely because of Chapter 70, the foundation formula, when our local increase is really not terribly significant in the scheme of things. Is that a fair statement?
No. But the only thing was, I don't think that when they came up with the formula last time for, what is it, the individual, what's the actual name of the extra funding we got from last year, the Student Opportunity Act. So I don't think it was their intention to, I think it was their intention to increase the funding. I don't think that they thought it was going to be a boomerang effect, because it's affected every community that got more money. So the good part is we got more money. The other side of it all is that our local contribution went up. It's not really a complaint, because I don't really think they set the formula up intentionally to be that way. And there's still, you know, like, we've had, I don't know how many conference calls and Zoom calls from mayors across the state saying, you know, I did really good last year, but this year I'm in trouble. We're not saying we're in trouble,
Yeah.
but other communities are, so again, it had a little bit of a boomerang effect. But you're right, this is more than sometimes we've been able to give, other times it's been less, but it's always
Yeah,
consistent.
we always, I mean, a lot of times it might be less in the beginning.
Right.
But by the time we're done, you get to compare it fairly, you have to historically look at all the other money that we've appropriated.
Exactly. So we break it down, just so you know it's understandable. And again, the highlights, the fiscal year 2023 tax levy ceiling was $90,158,798. I don't know, I'm gonna throw in a couple cents, just so we have a couple cents. The fiscal year 2024 Prop 2.5 tax levy increase allows for $2,250,970. No cents, I'm throwing in two. And the levy new growth local estimated receipts increase this year is between 8 and 9. So that's a little on the low side from last year, but that's what we're going to use for an amount. It may be a little bit higher, but I'd rather be on the it's lower in anticipation than have it be lower, than have it be less revenue in, and we were counting on 800,000 to 900,000. It ends up at 6 or 7. And then the room tax is estimated at 200,000. Again,
Wasn't there an overlay, would that be part of that too, Jen, too? Wasn't there a 250,000 removed from the overlay?
Yep, that's in addition to those. Yep.
Those figures?
Yep,
Another revenue
250,000 will be
source?
released from overlay for this
Yeah.
year.
just go back 1 second here. And then the room tax estimate, as I started to say, it's going to be lower simply because one of the hotels is being taken over by SMOC, so that'll be less revenue there. And again, you want to estimate these on the low end. In the event that they come in lower, that's fine. If they come in high, that's great, but you don't want it to be lower. So what are some of the highlights? We absorbed grant funding for the 5 advanced life support positions. We added 2 new full-time fire ALS positions. Remember, we used grant funding on the originally. Now they're a permanent part of the budget. We added a new code enforcement position, added a new police crime analysis person, and brought police reform overtime into the main budget, because we know that's going to be there every year. And then dispatches going live at fire headquarters. I hope you've all got your invitations.
Yep.
June 1st, they've really done an incredible job down there, all on their own. And the chief took the torch and ran with it, and I shouldn't say torch. He took the lead and ran on it. And it's really just, I think if you haven't been in recently, you'll be impressed. And there's our debt service increase is in there for the new police station. We don't have to raise taxes or do a debt exclusion on that project, so that's a good thing. And we're about a month or 2 from finishing it up. And as you know, we use our, we came here with a plan to use our free cash this year. So we use one-time cost, because we're not going to put in the budget $1 million in addition every year in resurfacing when we don't know if we're going to have that extra $1 million. So we use our free cash to do that, and these are some of the things that we've done. We've had matching grants to use, IT expenses, election expenses. They're constantly changing things on the election end, snow and ice, sanitation, all of these things. So we break this down once again so that you can see the estimate. And again, the budget process isn't over, but these are the numbers we're working with now, and that's obviously subject to change. And usually, somewhere around October, November, generally, we're making a transfer when we finally get those final numbers.
Yep.
And again, we break it down. We're able to fully fund the request made by the school department, which is a good thing, and here's our net school spending. And there's the whole breakdown for you. Transportation, which isn't going down. It's just going to continue to go up. Our increase is 9.33, but I think we offer a really good transportation service for our kids, and we pick up kids pretty much everywhere.
We couldn't add $999 to that?
No. So anyway, the total increase in direct spending to the school department will be $8,439,065. Yeah, so self-explanatory. So this fully funds, as I said, the school department's request, and includes 904.5 current full-time equivalents, currently posted positions and new positions including, and we list them here, and then the FY 2024 budget includes 55 full-time equivalents, 42 listed and 13 carryovers from fiscal '29. And I think what the superintendent would tell you when she's up here is that anybody that we used ARPA funds for, we let them clearly know that it was like a 2-year contract. Thank you, Melanie. And then we continue with our partnership with the schools, and Safe Routes to School, if you've been to Viscaloid Ave, it's just changing the whole look, but you could just see, there was no difference between the road and the sidewalk. And it's probably the school that the most amount of kids walk to, but we were able to convince the state, it's such a walkable neighborhood with churches and retail and restaurants and the mall and town. It's just, so many people use it. We got it from a $1 million project up to a $3 million, which means complete reconstruction of the whole street. We use city solar credits, surplus, and National Grid incentives to upgrade lighting at Bennett School and Pre-Street to LEDs, upgraded Northwest Library heating and cooling with the Green Communities grant, and then a grant for the new traffic calming device for Johnny Appleseed School. We did catch basin replacements at Johnny Appleseed. DPW installed water valves for the school service in conjunction with Save Routes to School. Replaced 4 sanitary sewer manholes on the main for school tie-ins, paving at Samoset, Fallbrook, Northwest, and then a grant pending for additional cameras for Samoset and Francis Drake for $100,000, and then a grant pending for $200,000 for fiber upgrade to all schools. So team effort. And locating other resources for funding or expenses for projects, building a strong economy to increase revenues. And then, as you know, Wendy's here tonight. I don't think I have to tell you that anything moves and it's got a dollar attached to it or 99 cents, she's going after it. And we've been very successful and there was another community that said, well, the state did this, the state did that. We advocate for all our projects. The state may fund these with either the federal funding or other funding that they might have, but the reality is we advocate for every single project. The hazardous mitigation plan is complete, allowing us to apply for $8 million in FEMA money for Monusnock and North Nashua. Open space and recreation plan is completed. That allows us, again, we have 4 plans, 15 years, and it allowed us to leverage about $5 million in funding for parks and land grants. And then matching state fund with local funds, allowing us to do 3 times the paving and sidewalks for the 2nd straight year. So we're spending about $3 million. Typical community our size spends about $1.2 million. We'll spend about $3 million this year, and we have done that for a couple of years now. So you can see it's making a difference. And the same thing with sidewalks. We use concrete sidewalks and granite curbing. You put in a blacktop curb, and you get 1 winter out of it, and you're back there doing it again.
And we're fortunate that we've had the extra because the costs have gone up for that
Exactly.
as well.
I mean,
It doesn't go quite as far as it used to.
Right. So and again, working with all utility companies to make sure the work is done before we come in to pave it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are all the current direct project funds. How they're getting financed, whether it's federal, state share, local match, or complete local funding, but comes out to about $11 million, and our local share is about 601. We despite the fact that one day the economy is tanking and recession starts tomorrow, in other cases it's what recession? And either way, we prepare adequately and conservatively, and we continue to open new businesses and expand others. And I don't know how many we're doing this week, but there just doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. But we have a good downtown business leader that show up for our monthly meetings, technical review process where we look at all projects that are coming in, so we prepare the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, or yourselves, depending on what the nature of the project is. So it works. We had a technical review meeting today. The rail trail, they said it would take a year to get the last piece of it. It's going to take a year to get the last piece of it, but it is, again, I don't know what your thoughts about how many people you think would use it, what they would use it for, but I have to tell you, at least on the Leominster side, I don't get to the Fitchburg side that often, but on the Leominster side, I'm amazed. Some days, I think you need a detail out there, because there's so many people. It's really been a big hit, as is the new skate park down on Johnson Street. Every parking spot is taken, there's little kids, there's teenagers, there's young adults, there's adults who are just posing themselves for risking breaking something on skateboards, but I'll leave it there. And then the high quality of life, low cost of living is really our motto. The fiscal year 2023 average tax bills, average single-family tax bill statewide is $7,059. In Leominster, it's $5,776. So we list, not to pick on anybody, but I mean, just Jen, the department heads, Jim, and David, and Wendy, everybody that works on this budget process, it really is. I mean, so many communities are going into the budget process. So many communities use their ARBA funds for fixed costs, which we didn't do, and they're in trouble now. And we're not entering the next fiscal year of 2024. We're in any stretch of the imagination, are we heading into another fiscal year with budget problems? We're actually going into it in really good shape. And but there's some of the other communities thus far this year just going in for overrides for capital cost and operating budgets. And some of the overrides in communities you would never expect have failed. So I think that's why our budget process is a good one. We do side on that side of caution and be conservative on the finance end, just in case, but it's always worked for us. And then a big thank you. Couldn't do without you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for a nice cogent overview of the budget. Any members of the Finance Subcommittee have any questions for the mayor or his team? No. Councilor Angelini? Any members of the council in general have any questions for the mayor or his team before we move on to the schools?
And remember, the only other thing I want to mention is, remember the feasibility study for Fall Brook? We did the 2 million plus minus. That's done. So we're in that. There are a number of members on the city council that are on that committee, but that part's done. So we were able to get that done in addition to and get the bus contract funded. We're just waiting, I think, for the last numbers on that, and we're done for the year on that, final payments. So we're ending the year I know it's May, but we're approaching the end of the year. We're ending in really good shape, and we're starting off next year in a good position.
Excellent. Just because I indicated earlier, I don't know if we have any members of the public, but if there's any member of the public that wants to make a brief comment, I'll take that at this time. If not, we can move on to the schools.
Roger. She's a special appearance by Roger Brooks. Were we okay, Roger? Was it all right? All right. Okay.
Good thing you went before Roger.
Huh?
Good thing you went before Roger.
Do you want me to hand these out now, or?
Yes, hold on one second.
Yep.
So for us, I know you all have your binders. We've gone from the binders to a full presentation, which we planned on having a PowerPoint for next Monday night's presentation, or we have an abbreviated version this evening with a big picture, which the audience said we should go with that, but it's up to this team. Would you like
The abbreviated, I mean, the
Perfect, sure.
primary focus tonight is for the Finance Subcommittee to develop a recommendation on the budget, or
Perfect.
the budgets, and obviously, we won't form that opinion till after the public hearings that will be conducted on the 22nd.
Okay.
So an abbreviated review is just fine.
Okay.
And
we're
once
o-
again, I
we're
want
open
to
to everything.
compliment the school department, yourself, and Ms. Michaels and everybody else that contributed to the budget book that you produced. It's incredibly detailed. It's a really good piece of information, and again, the best we've seen in a long, long time.
Thank you very much. Well, we're really excited to present this budget. FY '24 is taking off like a rocket. Thank goodness that the corrections have been made to the formula, which is now affording us to have a district where we no longer have to say, so what are we going to prioritize this year? So this year, everything's a priority. We are looking to hire quite a bit of staff. If you saw on the mayor's list, we have 13 carryover positions from FY '23, which we were not able to fulfill, but they are in our budget. They're important. We also are looking to increase with another 42 positions. Some of those positions are currently funded either in ARPA or our ESSER monies or through a grant. These are important positions that we know eventually are going to have to be in our local budget. We can absorb them, and we feel that these are long-lasting positions, so we want to take them on currently. We also are looking to expand all our before and after-school programs, as well as our investment in any and all technologies. We have Dell computer system. We are probably their best customer right now. We have every piece of equipment on order. The supply chain has started to pick back up for us, so we're in good shape. Big piece for us this year, as many of you have heard, is around the mental health of students and staff and families. We've had to have a large commitment and make sure that all of our schools have the proper guidance, staffing, and programming to ensure that everybody is healthy and safe. And lastly, we are now in a position to move forward with some flexible learning. We're actually looking to stretch out and expand. We're looking at alternative programs for, there's some new learners after COVID, that the traditional 8 to 2 doesn't always work for them. So we are looking for rental spaces currently and new pathways, which tonight at school committee, hopefully, they will be approved. Actually, this is a great time to be a student in Leominster. Moving into FY '24, we will no longer be charging for any fees, activities, busing, meals. Summer programming is all covered by this budget. We also, parents will not receive a request for any materials for the first day of school. We have already purchased all of those. Students, every student in the district will be leaving with books that have been on our summer reading list, and the needs of students have just been in the forefront throughout the year. So this evening, we're going to start with, and also go over with the public, the Chapter 70 formula. We've done this the last 2 years with this committee and feel it's important that we make sure that we break each one of the components down for the public to understand how do we get to this, Chapter 70, and what is the foundation of our work. Mel?
Sure. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. So as Paula said, I apologize for my voice. I went to the Celtics game last night, so.
Nobody feels sorry for her.
No, you don't have to, but I'm going to apologize if it goes in and out. But as Paula said, Chapter 70 it seems to be an elusive, funding for some people, but we feel it's important to just make sure everybody understands where it comes from. The formula aims to ensure each school district has sufficient resources, providing adequate education for all students, considering, as the mayor said, the ability of each local government to contribute. So the district's budget is determined by taking a multiplying factor of students at each grade level and demographic group by a set of educational spending categories, and then adding those dollar amounts together. So most of us are familiar with that part of foundation, but the local contribution is something that is more elusive for everybody. This portion is the amount that the district is able to reasonably contribute based off of the city's property values and based off of resident income. Chapter 70 determines that amount and then fills the gap between the district's required local contribution and its funding foundation budget. So we don't have the slide up front, but we will be moving on to the next page.
Page 7.
Slide 7. So in total for fiscal '24, the primary increase in net school spending is $8,439,065. And I think, as the mayor also mentioned, $6,842,699 comes from Chapter 70 aid, and the $1.5 million the mayor had mentioned is from the required district contribution for local. It's now our final budget, as the House and the Senate have released their versions, and it has gone before the governor, and this is now our solid budget. They were actually pretty quick this year. So Massachusetts continues to address the inequitable gaps that continue to be revealed in the formula for low-income students, English language learners, special education. It's been a victory for Leominster. We don't obviously plan on that increase, seeing that every year from year to year, but it's been a good victory the last 2 years. So we are, the formula is adjusting and making up for those gaps, and we're going to see a few more years of that. Not with such large jumps, I don't think, but you never know with what's going on these days. The fiscal '24 general fund budget will be supplemented by several other resources, as you can see. We have revolving accounts supporting specific programs or services. Circuit breaker offsets educational tuitions. You've got school choice, which offsets our students who attend from other districts. Listed under that other revenue and revolving. The line does include not only the estimated revenue for fiscal '24, but also that carry forward revenue that we've been able to take from the prior year into the new fiscal year. There's reoccurring federal and state grant funding through DESE to support goals and needs of the districts that we continue and apply for every grant that we can possibly apply for. And the mayor is doing a lot of that on our behalf also, which we're grateful for. The district's been given the one-time COVID federal funding. You can see the school district is able to address the impact of COVID-19 all the way through fiscal '24. The district is receiving $11,193,495 in ESSER 3 that we can continue to make use of through fiscal '24. Sorry. So we've broken down our budget, much like you've seen with that pie, into the 6 pieces. The budget process begins by determining what the district's contractual and fixed costs are. Anything, wages and salaries, benefits, special education tuitions, indirect charges, repair and maintenance, and then you see there's that other bucket there. We start with the largest expenditure to the district, wages and salaries, which together accounts for 78% of the school's budget. So you can actually turn to the next slide there. That gives you a nice breakdown of our wages and salaries based on our bargaining units. For fiscal '24, the wages and salaries do make up 63% of the general fund budget. Projected salaries will include contractual increases such as cost of living increases, step increases, lane changes, longevities, stipends, extracurricular stipends, things of that nature. We also include currently posted positions that we feel are necessary to carry forward into the budget, as you've heard, to be filled in fiscal '24 that were not filled in fiscal '23. Projected wages and salaries include new positions necessary based on projected enrollment, class size, and student need. For fiscal '24, the district's requesting a total of 904.5 FTEs or full-time equivalents, equaling $62,426,431. We'll move on to the next. Must have been easier with a little slideshow. And this is going to be slide 20. The Leominster Public Schools, as you can see as a whole, is requesting 62, as I said, for $1 million in wages and salaries, $31,536,913 in expenses, and $5,635,657 in indirect charges, for a total fiscal '24 net school spending budget of $99,599,001. So thank you for listening, and any questions you have, please.
Just kind of an observation. It almost seems to me like, based on the way the formula used to be interpreted, we were on rations for a long time, and all of a
Yes.
sudden, somebody opened the storeroom, we can eat.
And said, go in and spend whatever you want, yeah.
So that's been a really hard thing to adapt to.
Yeah.
So we still think of ourselves, using coupons everywhere we go. And, we run everything by Mel, and
Yeah.
we run it through the numbers. So when people this year, when their requests came in, there weren't too many no's. So the principals started to fill up their list with some wants.
Yeah.
If there's some good data behind it, you know, we could make things happen. We're putting in playgrounds right now at 2 schools, doing a 3rd school next year.
CTEI.
We gave CTI an extra $600,000 this year. We upgraded every single shop and expanded. So there's not too much that we have said no to, but it's been a long time coming.
And beyond that, we have all this one-time money
And
as
then we
well.
have the one-time
Correct.
monies as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, all good things.
Okay. Any members of the committee have any questions? The superintendent or Ms. Michaels? Any members of the council?
Next week for the public, we will break each one of those numbers and the segments
Okay.
down for
All
the
right.
public.
Very good. Any members of the public have a comment? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Off to school committee.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Is the library director
I
in the
know,
house?
I know, it's a great doorstop.
Hi, Alex.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It was amazing.
Okay, for the public, we have our library director, Alex Lent, and his assistant librarian, Nicole Butler, right? Is that right?
That's right.
Thank you for coming down this evening. If, Alex, you want to give us a sort of brief overview of where the library finds itself on this day in 2024? That would be helpful.
Absolutely. Well, while we've got you, we'd like to let you know that things are going pretty
By the
well.
way, I'm sorry, for members of who have the budget book, the library section is page 121 through 22. Sorry about that.
No worries. So we're requesting a budget of $1.8 million. This is an increase of a little more than 7% over the current fiscal year, and that works out to just shy of $132,000. Most of that increase, $120,000 of it, is going to the personnel budget, largely due to recently approved changes to the compensation and classification system here, for which our team is very grateful. The remaining roughly $12,000 goes to our operating budget. So we have 22 operating budget lines, and we're proposing to maintain or decrease 15 of them. We're asking for increases to the remaining 7 lines just to keep up with rising costs. Just as grocery costs have increased, so have office supplies and books and everything that we buy. So this is a level service budget. It will allow us to keep pace with rising costs, but it won't allow us to take on significant new projects. For that, we do grant writing and fundraising efforts. We rely on our friends of the library. We strategically draw from our trust funds, and we use our state aid to libraries account, which is sort of like our version of Chapter 70 aid. This year, we're using about $65,000 of state aid. It's a pretty simple budget this year. That's about it.
Well, you make a good point, and we'll see this in the rest of the budget, where there's increases typically there to fulfill the obligations of the city under the new wage classification for non-union employees,
Exactly
which
right.
is virtually most of, not all of your increase.
It's pretty close, yeah. Essentially, we're asking for $12,000 of money that we have control over.
Right.
While we've got you, though, I do want to mention that things are going pretty well at the library. Most Leominster residents are library users. Our books circulate more than 250,000 times per year. We have more than a month left in the year, but we've already held over 600 events with over 12,000 attendees. So we're not quite at pre-COVID levels yet, but we're really close. So it's been a good year.
Should also be mentioned that in reserve, we have some capital projects that we're looking at the library, the roof.
Exactly.
And some carpeting eventually, and sort of a cooperative effort going on between the city, the library. Why don't you talk a little bit about the reserve funds maybe, Alex?
Sure. So the library has a gifts and donations account, which is exactly what it sounds like. We have several trust accounts, which together are, I think we have something like $600,000 in trust right now. We have an additional 500 plus in state aid and about 100,000 in gifts and donations. So we're in a pretty good position here. Our building is 16 years old, and it is largely in terrific shape, but there are some major projects that need to be done, including a roof replacement, which will cost about $600,000. So we've been working with the comptroller's office and the mayor's office to come up with a plan for tackling these projects. I think we're in a good place where the city is paying for some and the library is paying for others out of its trust accounts and state aid accounts. And I think we feel pretty
Okay.
confident in the way we're going.
Very good, well done. Any questions for members of our committee, the Finance Committee, for Mr. Lett? Okay, members of the council? Is there any comment from the public? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're in a unique position, I think, of having to wait 4 minutes for the DPW presentation. Up is the DPW, and we're joined this evening by Mr. Fleming and Mr. Burks. DPW budget in the mayor's statutory budget book. Forestry is at page 96. Administration, highway, snow and ice, 106 to 111. Cemetery is 114 through 15. Water, 132 through 34, and sewer, 135 through 36. So if one of you gentlemen want to give us an overview of where we're at with the DPW and the water and sewer budgets, fire away.
Sure. Good evening. So we'll start off with the DPW budget out of the general fund, which would start with forestry and stop before water and sewer.
Okay.
We are relatively level funded moving forward, other than some contract negotiations with the union as far as some of the stipends, pay increases, and other than that, as far as the DPW building itself, building and grounds, we went up 25% from 40,000 to 50,000. As I'm sure everyone's aware, the DPW building is getting a little bit older, one of our older facilities in town, and just requires a little bit more maintenance to upkeep it, some HVAC, some plumbing upgrades. We do try to use the high school, the CTE program, when we can. Sometimes emergency repairs need to be hired out, but we do try to utilize that program, and they've been great. So that's something that's nice to have in the city. Garage doors over there, we have 16 overhead doors, all of which are out of OSHA compliance with as far as sensors, so we're working on replacing those. We did receive some funding from the mayor's office for 4 of those doors to get replaced. So we'll be working on that this year, and moving forward, we'll have to just do some upgrades like that.
You did add a full-time position at the cemetery too, I noticed.
We did. So we had a part-time seasonal.
Right.
What we found is that it's very difficult to keep good part-time help. You hire them for the summer. We get used to having a good employee over there. They leave, and we have to find someone new again. We found an employee that was hired as a part-time who did a fantastic job. And it really, the work that's over there, over 50 acres really needs 3 full-time employees doing the grounds and upkeep, and it's been a huge advantage. And it's also nice because we have an additional CDL driver for plow, snow, sanding operations as well.
Yeah, the director came down here, I think, when we funded that during the course of the year and suggested that he challenged that employee to go and get his CDL, and he was able to do that. And we got, the best of both worlds, have his help in the winter and for
With
the
the new
cemetery.
CDL system, it was extremely impressive how fast he was able to get it with the schooling. We haven't had anyone get it that fast, so it was testament to that employee's drive to get it done. He's younger, which is nice to have young employees in the city to get a CDL that quick. A lot of determination, so kudos to him, and we're happy to have a full-time position there.
Great.
And we're lucky to have a full-time position there. Besides that, we're gonna continue doing, our snow and ice is level funded. The rest of the expense accounts, we're keeping similar budget. We did reallocate some funding in our sanitation drainage account. We've, some part-time help, which we've contracted out to do some part-time testing in the MS4 program. We've been able to do some of that testing internally in the past couple of years, so we'll be able to reallocate some of that funding towards capital projects. So it's kind of a testament to the testing that we've done, the results, and getting some work done with those results, without increasing the overall budget, just reallocating some of the funds.
Okay, maybe before we go to water and sewer, are there any questions, members of the committee, for Jake on the DPW side? How about members of the council generally? Okay, any members of the public have a comment? All right, if you want to go through the water and sewer side of it.
I'll pick up on some of that. So these budgets, the water and sewer budgets, are fairly flat in terms of funding. They've been relatively flat over the last couple of years. Biggest changes, contract services, there was a slight bump in that, but we had to reduce some of that in order to pick up. We had the, let's see, contract services went up 175, and we had to drop down 125 out of the water system, and that's really reflective of the services contract. We don't know the pricing of the materials. This past year has seen as dramatic a price change in materials as I can ever remember. Jake and the staff are going out to bid on ductile iron pipe again shortly, and we're not very optimistic that the pricing is going to be very competitive. So we're going to have to take a look at some of the costs of materials to evaluate the priorities on the capital program.
Just for reference there, we were prepped that we're in year 3 of a contract for ductile iron and pipe right now. We were prepped that the pricing is expected to double on our contract that we're putting out the bid. So per foot of, linear foot of 12-inch pipe is going from roughly $40 to roughly $80. And that was 3 months ago when that discussion, and prices go up. So it's just something that, we're assessing and have to take in consideration in purchasing going forward.
Good, Councilor, go ahead.
About 2 miles is what we try to do on average.
Yeah. Right. Well, in over 35 years in the industry, I've never seen the price of materials double like that. And it's just, part of it's supply and demand, some of it's the American iron and steel requirements on projects that are funded with federal funds. But it's a dramatic impact. It's impacting every water and sewer facility in the state, so. One of the things that we would like to point out on the capital programs that they've been working on this year is we've started to break ground in March and actually finished breaking ground and starting to work on the tank up on at No Town. We expect that to be done, I think, November-ish. And that seems to be a reasonable schedule, with COVID. Both the beginning of this project and the wastewater treatment plant project got pushed off almost a year because of delays, contractors having COVID, getting staff, getting materials. So it's been a real challenging year to get major projects done.
That's a complete replacement of the existing tank, right, Roger?
Correct. The tank is completely gone as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a 3 million gallon tank. We worked with the fire department to make sure that it wouldn't adversely impact flows and fire protection downtown. But the determination was it was going to be over $2 million just to do upgrades, repairs, and repaint it. And in the long term, we felt that the water quality is better with a 2 million gallon tank instead of a 3 million gallon tank. Doesn't create the disinfection byproducts that the bigger tank had, and this facility will also have aeration. So water quality out of this is going to be absolutely premium.
Can you give us a little overview of how that was funded?
Well, we funded it with SRF funds, and then part of it's with ARPA funds. The SRF loan is, I was talking to Jake earlier, we started this back in, I think, 2019 was the application. We started the actual work, I think, in 2020. And in 21, when the biggest impact from COVID was we almost didn't do any work for, 6 months? It just dragged. So,
So the issue with these, both the wastewater and the water projects, so they were projects funded through the SRF program, which is a low interest for water, 0 interest for sewer. But they were both financed and approval financing pre-COVID, and we're then doing the construction, design, build projects in a post-COVID environment. So pricing has been up 30%, so the struggle has been trying to keep these projects on time and budget. They've been over budget and then trying to source the funds to complete those. So that's kind of the challenge that we've had. We've been able to use some of the ARPA funding that was designated for water and sewer purposes, but we've also had to dip into some of the capital funding, which is taken away from that, the 2 miles a year pipe that we've been able to order ahead of time, doing some sewer upgrades. We're still getting stuff done, and we're still being proactive, just, it's slowed us down a little bit on that front.
the other good thing with both of those projects, however, is in terms of the loan portion of that, you get a discounted repayment plan. There's a principal forgiveness for both water and sewer. The sewer is 6.6 on the sewer and 13.3 on the water. So the loans that we did or were approved for will be reduced in terms of repayment amounts. And now getting into that, those loans were funded with the increase that we had approved back, I think, in 2020 and 21. So one of the things we're looking at right now as we speak is EPA is visiting, going through. We've had a couple of meetings with them. On the wastewater side, the notice on public comment was posted May 5th. There's a 30-day comment period on that. And after the comment period is over, they'll come back and give us a final draft to review and go over. And then on the water side, there's also a NIPIDs permit for discharging. And I don't think we really have any feedback from them at this point. We're kind of waiting, aren't we?
We had comments, and we were allowed.
So these
to
are permit renewals?
That's correct.
Yeah.
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 So the EPA, where with DEP, as they do every few years, they introduce new water quality standards through the Clean Water Act. That they're required to do that, and then we're required to then meet those within a certain time frame. Some of the requests have been more stringent than than most water and sewer suppliers were expecting. And with the testing, some of the testing is very expensive testing, very exclusive testing, where a lot of labs aren't doing it. The requirements are steep, so there's gonna be costs associated with those tests and upgrades to then meet the new standards. Obviously, it's early because they haven't been, it's just comment period, nothing been set in stone yet, but that may affect, what we're gonna
Is
be.
some of this PFAS driven, some of this stuff?
PFAS is one of the chemicals, and that's one of the ones the testing is very expensive, and there's very few labs that do it. We're lucky where we don't have a large PFAS. It's not overly present in Leominster. So we don't, and plus the treatment that we have at our 3 treatment facilities, our GAC, which is the only really known and approved treatment process. So those are already installed at all of our plants, so we're kind of ahead of the game there. But the other testing requirements, especially at the wastewater plant, the water plant, the discharge permits are gonna be.
So it's always a moving target. in other
It's always a
words.
moving
Right.
target. If you do
And-
the upgrades, then you gotta, then reassess and then do the next ones.
And the problem with this is these are federal requirements. This isn't something driven by DEP. So,
So I'm sure you guys are pursuing grant opportunities as well.
So,
As the program.
as they become available, correct. A lot of the ones that they have now, that's some of the comments from other water suppliers have been along the lines of the requirements they're proposing don't have funding sources and they're very costly, which we're hoping that allows them to take back a little bit on the requirement until sources of funding become available, which seem to be the best type of pushback with state and federal regulators is really the funding and allowing programs like the SRF program, which has always been good at targeting the new and emerging chemicals and contaminants. But just playing a little bit of catch up there, but we'll see how that pans out once the permits are issued.
And one of the other good things is, over the last 15 years, we've completed most of the upgrades operationally at the wastewater plant, so your plant operations are very efficient. We're just wrapping up, and I think Jake could tell you that how soon, it's either in the next month or 6 weeks, but the final sign-off on the aeration, which is the last major portion of the upgrades to the wastewater plant, which will be really good. And then we also get a rebate on that from National Grid for energy efficiency applications that we made there.
99% complete.
Yeah. The other thing is, one of the things that's in the NIPID's permit at the wastewater plant is also flood activity. They're trying to include flood conditions that are not in any NIPID's permit anywhere. So that may be one of the topics that needs to be discussed more thoroughly, I think, throughout, not only here in Leominster, but throughout the country. One of the advantages we have here is, we worked with Wendy to get the North Nashua River grant on the first phase of that riverbank stabilization, not knowing that this permit was coming out. And now that the permit's coming out, this will enable us to adjust maybe some of the elevations if we have to, as to where the stabilization along the bank elevation will be. So flood elevations are critical. They're critical to businesses here. Flood insurance for the businesses will be impacted by whatever comes out of this. So it's more than just a municipal public works function that's going to be impacted. It's the insurance for businesses here in town, so. But again, it's, right. Just quickly on the sewer budget, the one noticeable thing is the debt service
So
application.
because we're 99% complete on that SRF project, the wastewater plant, we will be going into repayment in fiscal '24 for that. And so you'll see that reflected in the debt service principal. And also the amount that it's reduced is then reduced the capital budget for the waste, for sewer for this year. That's really the largest noticeable change.
And I think, right now, Jake's done a great job keeping expenses in line so that we can continue to do the projects we have, keep them in line as much as we can. Some of these are not going to get funded because there just won't be the funding. But we've got our fingers crossed. We're working with Wendy on a MassWorks grant for one of the major projects in this fiscal or capital year. And if it comes to pass, it'll be a huge benefit all the way around. It's the last of our I&I projects from back in the day, and
70s, right?
Pardon?
How far back does that go?
2002, right?
the
I&I project.
no, the consent order was December of 1996. Trust me, I was there. It wasn't fun. But, you know, in the scheme of things, kudos to the city for getting a lot of that. I mean, there was a lot of work that got done. There was a lot of financial support, a lot of hard decisions. I mean, I was down here many a night asking people for more money to do I&I work or upgrades at various facilities, and it's been a long haul. But I'm going to say this, the rates here in town are very competitive on the low side. We were just talking about one of the nearby communities that just had to publish their rate structure, and I'll tell you, it's not pretty.
Just for the public, Roger,
Yeah.
I&I work, stormwater infiltration into the sewer system is
Yeah.
what we're talking about?
Right.
Right. Which we don't want to be treating.
Inflow and infiltration. The inflow is the immediate access to the sewer system of rainwater or drainage, and infiltration is what you wind up with around your pipes, joints, sewer service laterals coming out of homeowners' properties, things like that. So,
Neighbors upstream, obviously, they don't have the same approach to that I&I issue.
there are concerns with that, and we do have to remind them periodically that that's part of their program too. They did adopt all our regulations, so they're on top of it.
All right, any questions from members of the Finance Committee for Jake or Roger? Okay, members of the council? All right, any comments from the public that's present? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up's the fire department. Huh? I don't think so. Good evening, gentlemen. The fire budget is at page 86, and the ambulance and paras are at page 88. Chief, if you want to give us a little bit of an overview of this year's budget process?
Good evening, councilors. Thank you. Overview of the fire department budget. As you know, the fire department, we run the fire service, the ambulance service, and then the superintendent of fire alarm has a section of a budget that's under the wire inspector. The fire department budget, we're running with the same staff as we have been over the last number of years. Allows us to maintain the 3 fire stations, one in the south, one in the north, one downtown. Allows our staffing levels on the fire companies to be what they have been. The salaries, we've been funded to reflect the increases in the contract and for payroll and all of those type of items. Overtime is funded at the previous years, and as usual, we come throughout the year and, request additional funding to meet our contract obligations. From year to year, it's tough because we don't know injuries, illnesses, military assignments, those types of costs. It kind of keeps its checks and balance where, I have to come before the council for the additional overtime, and kind of lets the council and the city know, where we stand to make it through the year. Expenses, on the expense side, is I didn't get all of my requests that I asked for. I did get some, and my increases for this year were based on automotive repairs, diesel fuel, and tires as being the main components. So with the unexpected price of diesel fuel is, through the budget process, it was increased. And like this year, if it stays at the same, then I'd have to seek more funding towards the end of the year. Tires and automotive repairs, this was, for some reason, a bad year. I think it's got to do with the cost of materials, some unexpected breakdowns. We're busier, so tire usage is up. And those are hard to put a value on to be funded in a budget that the price could drop, it could go up. Supply chain has a reason for some of those costs. We have been able to do a lot to the 3 stations and now the 4th station through the mayor's office and Wendy using the ARPA money. We've made investment in upgrades to the living quarters. So we've made them, modernized them, plus we've made them safer. So we've split up the living quarters into individual rooms. We've been able to install HVAC units for all of the stations. You know, we used to have the old gas heaters or the modines. They're inefficient and with steam radiators. So we've made those upgrades over the past couple of years. We've been working on the fire headquarters now for 2 years. This month marks 2 years down there. And through the ARPA and some money through the city, we've been able to make that building so that we're using all 4 floors. That's including the basement. And then additional money set specifically for the communication side is made major upgrades to the communication system for the city. So June 1st is our go-live date. We're going to have the open house for the city workers on the 23rd. As you'll see, it's there's 8 dispatch positions down there. It gives us room for expansion. We're going to be in the same room as the police 911 dispatchers, and that's going to help greatly with emergency communications of just talking across the floor for our wants and needs from each department, sharing resources, sharing staffing, and supervision. The long-term goal or an idea is to transition in from firefighters doing fire dispatch to the Public Safety Dispatchers Union of Civilian Dispatchers taking over. I think what a better model may be is a combination down the road of some fire personnel in there and some civilian doing the fire side. Not only is it you get the experience and the knowledge of the fire side, because things change, in that room is the ability to keep firefighters that can't work their normal position because they've either had an illness, an injury, or something else in their life. Instead of them being on sick leave or duty injury leave, they're inside, in the dispatch, being productive. And I also think that for mental health going forward is a lot of times when a firefighter or a police officer can't work because of whatever the circumstance, it's not good for the mental health. So I think some form of combination of uniformed firefighters in there with the civilians, to me, would be the goal long term. I think it would be much more beneficial for the city and for the individuals themselves. Major upgrades to the communications, a lot of behind-the-scenes work. It's something to be proud of. And then so that kind of covers the fire side budget of it. This year, with the start of the paramedics, is last year there was some startup money, both in the budget and then on the ARPA funding. And the comptroller has created our own paramedic ALS budget that's under the fire budget. And we are currently at 5 paramedics. We have 1 per 24-hour shift, and then we have one that supervises and he works days. We're going to get 2 additional paramedics, which would bring us to 7, and we're going to go 2 24 hours a day. That's moving the supervisor to a regular shift, and then we'll fill that 8th position on an overtime basis. So it allows the city to gradually increase to 8 paramedics. We raised the funding through increase the ambulance bills. Medicare increased this year and Mass Health increased this year. And if the last 2 to 3 months are any indication, is we're right on pace for what we predicted. And our runs have not slowed down to keep getting busier. So unless something out of our control affects the ambulance billing, we should be funding most of our ALS and BLS ambulance service through the revenues collected on the third-party billing system. And so the budget now contains the benefits for the paramedics. There's holiday shift differential, uniform allowance, which is easier to manage, easier to show that the revenues, offset the cost. And then lastly, the wider department budget, which last year the council added the 3rd position back that we haven't had in years. That group of 3 workers, that division, they will maintain all of the infrastructure for the police and fire and DPW, emergency management communications. So a lot of the transmitter sites, receiver sites, the dispatch consoles, they maintain it along with the municipal fire alarm system, traffic lights, and then the street lights are in a different account, but it's actually maintained through those individuals. So they oversee a lot of the public safety issues, not only in the communications, but with the police and the traffic, their radios and such. Anything you'd like to?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, you pretty much covered it.
So Chief, basically, to sum it up, there's some good news here. I mean, in the sense that, our paramedics, or our ambulance response is now, advanced life support, the type of services that we didn't have in the past that we now have, that we're sending out there with ambulances. And this, big step forward with our communication system and dispatch, all with really little impact to the Leominster taxpayer, right? In the
Yes,
end?
yes, and I could go on for a long time, but, with the mayor's support and this council's support, that was a big step for the city to take to get into the ALS ambulance, supported on the increase of the ambulance billing. This program it's way beyond what I thought was going to help, with the residents. As the mayor said in his presentation, the paramedic program is a home run.
What the residents have to understand is now, their calls are being attended by people with skills that are much, beyond the regular, not that there's anything wrong with the, the
No,
first
you're right.
responders
No.
that have answered these calls historically, but now you're getting, the hospital's coming to your door, in a
Exactly.
sense, right?
So very little impact financially to the city budget. Yes, these are seasoned paramedics that are arriving on scene within 4 to 6 minutes, and they are saving lives. It's amazing daily the type of calls. They can help control a person's breathing. Us in the BLS side is, we could help them. We could, if they stop breathing, do life-supporting efforts. Now the medics can actually give breathing treatments that are treating the person in their house 10 to 15 minutes prior to them going into the hospital and then being set up for the breathing treatment. So by the time they're bringing them to the hospital, they're working hand in hand with the doctors and the nurses that,
That's great.
It
That's
is,
just
it really is. In the communication center, what's going to happen there is where a lot of our calls are medical, is the information coming out of the dispatch that the 911 operator receives on the police side. is going to be streamlined right to our dispatches so that we can give updates while they're en route, make sure we're sending the right equipment. We have the ability to send messages over computer screens to the fire apparatus, so we can give door codes to people's houses. We can give, if there's a certain change in their condition where the paramedic and the firefighters are reading it either on their phone or on their computer terminal that, the condition's turning, we need to bring this bag in, we need to think about giving this medicine when we get in
Right.
there.
That's really wonderful.
And just real quickly, is the paramedics are going on, we had 6 months, data. They're doing about 8.5 dispatchers a day, so they're going about 8.5 calls a day. And out of those, they're transporting to the hospital 4 times a day. So they're not triaging up, what you call it. They're not getting in the ambulance for billing purposes. They are actually you need ALS, we're going to treat you. If can be handled at the BLS, they triage them, reassign them to the BLS. Now they're in service for the next person that may need the illness. Where prior to that, if it was ALS, a lot of times they'd be in the truck. The next call came in, and they'd be so the system is working great. And
That's good news.
Again, thank you and the mayor,
Oh, thank you.
everybody.
Any members of the Finance Subcommittee have any questions for the chief? Yeah.
Chief, and the mayor was down here to talk about the communications center and how you guys are going to analyze some of that data. And obviously, striving to be more efficient. Do you think there's any potential for savings after that data has been analyzed for a while, or efficiency improvements? Not that.
Yeah, so on the communication side, so with the center we built, we actually built it that we could take in other communities. So instead of us going to a regional center, we could be the regional center. When you become a regional, the funding from the state 911 kicks in. So a lot of places get a pack together, they approach the state, then the state kicks in money, and they get in the system, they don't know if it's going to work or not. What Leominster, what we did was, we built the system, again, without impacting the taxpayers, but we designed it so that we could take the lead in this area, that we could take in another community or 2 or 3, and there's a big funding source for that. And by doing that, you share a lot of the resources. So we're doing it internally with the police and the fire, was where the police may have had one receiver site and we had another, and we would need a repairman to go there and, on our side, or the cost is, over the last few years, we've started consolidating all the police fire receiver sites, the transmitter sites. So there should be a cost savings, or at the very least, is these facilities will be kept up
Easier to
because
maintain.
we'll be able to use both police and fire funding through the communications. Just the savings, and when we bring in our vendor, obviously the knowledge that person has is, you can't expect that from our crew, because they're electricians, they do a lot. They come in and they're troubleshooting both the fire, the police, emergency management at the same time, because it may be one component. So right now, we've started to get a better product for the same amount of money. So,
Thank you very much.
yep.
You're welcome, Council Cormier. Okay, members of the council? Any member of the public have a comment? Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. Thank you, Chief Kennedy. We're only 5 minutes behind schedule. Small miracle. Good evening, Chief. The police side of this budget starts at page 83, for anybody with the budget book. Chief, if you want to give us an overview of this year's budget process?
Yes, budget overall is up just a little bit from last year. Most of it's because of, contractual obligations, step raises, longevity. There was one added position that I've asked for a couple of years. The crime analyst was given to me by the mayor and the comptroller, which is a welcome addition, or actually bringing that position back into the fold. We'll have a lot of great use to it, and we're going to use this crime analyst to also tap into some limited grant writing at the beginning to help us with different parts where we're moving in with a new station. So give you guys a little what's presently going on. As you know, I've asked for a lot of overtime this year. I think I set a record this year. Presently, I have 5 in the academy, and we're going through a large hiring process right now to get 10 conditional offers for the department. We went through our Leominster list, and we asked for the entire state list to get prospective candidates. We had like 500 or 600 names, and we only got 25. Of the 25, I'm pretty confident that we'll get the 10 to get us back to 62. They're not all going to be Leominster residents, but they're all within, a 10-mile range or a little bit over. But a lot of them are willing to come towards Leominster from where they are, and they're very exceptional candidates so far, which I'm, gladly be proud to have them on this department representing the city of Leominster. On that note, the crime analyst position was added, which was a necessity. The people that have the Quinn has gone down a lot. We're down to 13. But to attract new officers on the department during the contractual obligation, we added an educational incentive that was much lower rates than the Quinn bill. It was like $5,000, $7,000, and $10,000 yearly, not all together. It doesn't go up with a pay raise. We had 18 new officers that benefited from it. But the line item for the educational incentive was able to absorb it without increasing it. This year, we added the in-service training. Usually, we have to come in like right after we do the budget to ask for hundreds of $1,000s to do it. This year, we were able to ID what we were going to need, and we had a rough idea what the courses that were going to be offered that we needed to provide for the officers. That was added into the budget. Most of the expenses so far this year have stayed intact, as is even our contract services. Gasoline, tires, like the fire department said, had gone up, but so far I've been very fortunate with the numbers that we have that it stayed within the limits. Most of the expenses that we keep are like uniform allowances and medical and dental stuff as we use for the background hiring and processes, and stuff we pay for injured on duty, which we've had a lot this year. We had like 4 officers out IOD for various injuries.
Yeah, we just appropriated some money to the indemnification account.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. I got Garrett Hardy should be coming back. He's the officer that was struck by the vehicle just about a year ago. He's almost there. He's still got to do some final testing, but I expect to see him back hopefully within the month. We did get a guy back from military, Renzo Villanuevas. He was over Middle East for a year. He just showed up today, eager to get back to work, so he's getting his integrations done. We have a lieutenant on days who's been out injured with a shoulder injury, required surgery. Another officer got hurt on wrestling with a gentleman who should be coming back shortly. And then we lost.
On duty, I take it.
Huh?
On duty, I take it.
Oh, yeah. And then we lost one of our traffic officers for the rest of the year due to a bad shoulder injury that was job-related. But unfortunately, with the injuries on duty, the shortage of manpower, military leave, it was just an empty hole all year. It's been a tough year. The guys are getting tired. Hopefully with the hiring we're doing right now, that by the end of the year, or if not right after the new year, we'll have 62 men and women of the department, and we can get back to what we think is a full strength for the city of Leominster. And we're losing, not really losing. I think we're actually gaining, better dispatches with them emerging over at 210. My dispatches that I have right now, when we designed the new police station, before I took over under the prior administration, it was left out. And then when I took over, the decision was that they were gonna stay at 29 Church Street. And, I got a phone call from Chief Silo saying, what are you doing with 210 Lancaster Street? And I'm like, I couldn't get rid of that building like a hot potato. And he had some plans for it, told me what they were thinking. I was game for whatever they wanted to do with that building. And whoever hasn't seen that dispatch center, I go, it's gonna set the city of Leominster in a very good position with communication, because, seeing it, how police operate over here, I hear things going on, because, I may be the chief, but I'm still a patrolman at heart. I love going on calls, so, certain calls pique my interest, and I walk in. This team that's going over to 210 Lancaster Street, I cannot say how great these 12 dispatchers we have now. They are a very fluid and team effort machine over there, and merging with the fire department. They're gonna be handling calls now. You can stand up and just, we got a bad call where someone's injured. They can already start the ball rolling with the fire department rolling out the door. So the communication is gonna be great. The technology they invested, we've been meeting regularly since the thought was born that they were gonna start a dispatch center down there. And just watching it grow every Tuesday when we go down there to meet and look at it, it's just, breathtaking. I know a lot of people that have retired that are gonna come in and see the open house are gonna be like, I don't think I can do the job anymore because this is unbelievable. But I think it's gonna benefit the city. Communications is gonna be exceptional. Hopefully it'll streamline other issues for the city like DPW and, getting the calls out for them, so.
What financial impact is the new building gonna be on your budget?
On the new 116 Central Street, well, it's got a lot of energy savings built into it for energy efficient heating, HVAC. So we should see a savings. That savings, unfortunately, will probably be used at 29 Church Street, which I believe I'll probably still be on the hook for a period of time. Hopefully that will be shorter than it was with 210. But I think overall, the long-term service finances for that building should be better. Right now, 29 Church Street, we just shut the heat off. You have on and flame on. That's how the heat was not energy efficient over there. So our energy bills were through the roof. He was coming on and going out the window. So we weren't saving anything. So being able to be in the construction of the new police station and seeing what they were putting in there, material being used, we should see a savings. Really probably see it in a couple of years once we discontinue, paying for anything at 29 Church Street. I think we should.
The morale of the department has to be, on the upswing with the new building, I would think. And in addition to that, does that help you in your recruiting process?
Yes. Recently, we've had people coming in, giving conditional offers as we start moving through the background. A lot of them, a lot of people ask us, why are you asking for a whole state list? It's not a popular job anymore. And I needed to try anything to get hire people. So, that was a nice, bringing people in and having pitches like, this is a new station. This is the new gear that we had, like, body cameras, tasers, new computer system that's on the horizon. Everything we do is for the future and it making us more proficient in our job. And a lot of people, like a young lady was in today, she's a 4-year varsity at a local college. She blew away all the men in the PAT fitness.
Nice.
It was great. I'm very fortunate that the hiring and people in the academy right now has been so diverse. Men, women, different backgrounds. It's going to be great. And they're going to fit a lot of people that's in our city. And so I think the new station definitely was a good selling point because I'm like, did you come in on Route 12? Did you see that thing look like a casino? That's a police station. But no, they all come and they all talk about it. Oh yeah, new station. I'm like, I've been saying it for over 28 years. New station, but it's actually happening.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
great.
going to be great. And it's hopefully we'll all be going down there in the next couple of months to take a tour through it.
Great.
It's looking really unbelievable right now. I try to go down there once a month to go through it, not every Wednesday. But I can tell you right now, if there was a furniture, it would be moved in now. That's how much it is done. But they're just tidying up now, doing some punch list on their end. And you can see by now they took the fence down, so they're working on the landscaping in the front. And we designated a spot for memorial. We just got to work out the financial part of that. But it's looking good.
Excellent. Any members, any questions by members of the Finance Subcommittee? Counselor Cormier?
Just a statement, I wanted to thank Chief, I had the privilege of doing a lot at a local college in their criminal justice department, and I was plugging Leominster and the Duke Police Department.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping a few of those might take the bait. And
Yeah.
bring them over to us.
I met with the local colleges lately, and I've been stressing, like, you know, if you want to buy some tenements and use it as dorms, they get residency.
And I have to tell you, the young men and women that I met are all fantastic.
Yes.
Great people, great kids, very interested and very much looking forward to it, so I'm hoping,
Yep.
hoping it helps.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, I also forgot to add that where our mental health clinician that we got an earmark from the state is starting on the 22nd this month. We did go through a hiring process with Open Sky, and Vanessa Rivera is going to be starting. She comes well versed in the field. She's young and she's eager, and she's short career, but she's covered a lot of ground. So I think she's going to bring a lot of experience to the city of Leominster and help us in the mental health field.
Great. Counselor Angelini, anything? All set? Members of the council? Counselor Brady?
Yeah, just a quick one. I'm just curious. How are you handling interpretation?
We have a interpreter service that we pay by the minute, and we go through trends when we really need it, and then we don't use it for a while. We've only spent a small amount of money. I never budgeted for it because it's been so limited, but we've been very fortunate. But this is multiple jurisdictions use it, like Quincy out towards Boston. So picked it up during some of the Chiefs meetings I go to, and once we got it set up, it's been pretty easy to use. So.
All set, Counselor? Anybody else? Any members of the public have a comment on the police budget? Okay, thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. The Finance Subcommittee will be taking up C66 through C81, which are all matters which will be on the May 22nd agenda for action in about at 6:38. I'm going to take a 5-minute break. And we'll be back. indicated, we were going to continue with the general communications that are on for action on the upcoming agenda for May 22nd, so to get a head start on that. As indicated at the outset of the review, the budget reviews, C-78, which is the Water Department budget, C-79, which is the Sewer Department budget, and C-80, which is the General Fund budget. The Finance Subcommittee will not be making a recommendation or reaching a recommendation this evening on those until we've had a public hearing and had the input of the public, as well as other counselors on those items. We will now move on to C-66, which is Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. Request to authorize the city to pursue $253,000 through the State Department of Environmental Protection. C-66 is a letter from the mayor dated May 3rd, 2023. Authorization to pursue Mass DEP grant funding. Dear members of the City Council, on behalf of the Department of Public Works, I respectfully request that the City Council support a petition to allow the City of Leominster to pursue $253,000 through Mass DEP's lead service line planning program. The goal of the lead service line inventories and replacement planning program is to assist public water supplies with complying with lead and copper rule revisions. The planning program will offer grants for projects completing these activities. The grant requires notification and subsequent vote of the governing body, in the case the Leominster City Council, before the grant can be submitted. This is an excellent opportunity for the city to access Mass DEP funding. I hope you will support moving forward with this application. So the gist of it, of course, is that the mayor needs our authorization as a city council to pursue this grant funding. We all know the impacts of water or lead potentials in the public water supply system, and obviously this is in the interest of public health, and it seems like it to be a very worthwhile pursuit by our grant administrator, Ms. Weeks, and the mayor's office. I don't know if there's any questions from members of my committee, but my position I would be supporting this on the 22nd.
I will be supporting it as well.
And Councilor Angelini?
I will make it unanimous. It's a wonderful program.
All right, so the position of the Finance Subcommittee on Monday will be unanimous to grant. C-66. C-68. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request that an appropriation of $17,406.50 be made to the Police Department Bulletproof Vests account, the same amount to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency Fund. It's a letter from the mayor dated May 3rd requesting that amount. There's an attached quote from a company called Atlantic Tactical, which sets forth the cost of 13 of these vests and this equipment for police. And the total cost of this program is $17,406.50. And of course, this is for the protection of our police department. And it'd be my position that we would look upon that favorably. I'd ask Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
Mr. Chairman, I might add that the $17,406.50, this will be reimbursed at a future date by the state and federal government at 50%. So I would certainly be in favor of this. Once again, we're using grant money to offset the cost of these ballistic vests, and I think it's a wonderful program. So I would be in favor of it as well.
Excellent. So that'll be noted as a unanimous to grant. C-69, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same to be transferred from the Excess and Efficiency Account. There's a letter from the chief dated May 1st, 2023. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, the Fire Department requests a sum of $250,000 for overtime costs. I am requesting the amount to be transferred at the discretion of the Comptroller's Office. My department's overtime spent to date is related to normal contract obligations, 2 members requiring duty injury coverage, 2 vacancies, military activation / drills, recalls for residential fires, mutual aid, renovations to the headquarters at 210 Lancaster Street, and paramedic overtime. Overtime funds needed for the remainder of the fiscal year will be used for the above, along with normal vacancies caused by sick, personal, and vacation leave. Thank you for your continued support. Should you have any questions or concerns regarding any of the above, please feel free to contact this office. So, we've dealt with this numerous times in the past. We know the chief does a good job of working with limited funds, and for all those reasons that the chief outlined in his letter, there's been a taxing of the overtime account. So it would be my position to grant C-69. Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement as well.
Thank you. So that's unanimous to grant. C-70, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $30,000 be transferred to the library's operating account from the following accounts: clerks, $14,000, part-time, $12,000, librarians, $4,000, for a total of $30,000. There's a letter from Alex Lent, the library director, dated April 24. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, on behalf of Leominster's Public Library, I'm requesting a transfer of $30,000 from the library's personnel accounts. The transfer will help to fund the library's remaining book purchases through the end of the fiscal year, allowing the library to reach the spending standard required by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners and the state aid to the public libraries program. So this is surplus money in the budget on the personnel side, which the director is looking to use to purchase materials. And as he mentioned, in order for us to qualify for state aid, which he mentioned this evening earlier, is $64,000 this year coming up. We have to spend that certain amount of money, and that's in materials, and this will help him do that. It's a net, there's a net nothing to the taxpayer. It's just sort of shifting it from one bucket to the other at the library, so it seemed logical to do it. I'm in favor of it. I check with Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
And I'm in agreement as well.
That's a unanimous grant. C-71, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested that the appropriation of $118,572.05 be transferred from the snow and ice overtime account to the snow and ice expense account. There's a letter from Ray Racine, the library the DPW director, indicating that with all the snow removal actions finalized for fiscal year, the remaining funds in the overtime account would be best used to cover equipment repairs and restocking of consumables used this snow season, as well to cover budget shortfalls for contractors who plowed for the city, particularly in the March 14th snow event. By approving this transfer of all of the already allocated funds, it will reduce the amount of the appropriation needed to close out the snow and ice expense account for the fiscal year. So, as indicated, this is money that's already spent. As under state law, the city is permitted to spend in deficit for snow and ice removal. Really don't have much of a choice with this one. I know that the director and the department does its best to keep our roads clean and clear, and of course that comes with a cost. So, be my position to grant C-71. I ask to check. I check with Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement as well.
So that'll be a unanimous to grant on Monday, a week from today. C-72, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $97,079.62 be made to the snow and ice account, same to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Again, this is to cover snow and ice expenses. As the DPW director indicates, a lot of it came from the big snow event we had on March 14th. For the same reasons, it would be my position to grant C-72. I check with Councilor Cormier,
I agree.
Councilor Angelini.
Make it unanimous.
That'll be unanimous to grant on the 22nd. C-73, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $23,075 be made to the street signs and fences account, same to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. The DPW director indicated in a letter to the mayor An appropriation will be used to cover expenses associated with repairing damaged guardrails and fencing in the following areas. Excuse me. Vezina Street at 11th Street, 10th Street at the dead end, 54 Hill Street at 90 Degree Bend, 11th Street at dead end, 6th Street at dead end, Water Street at Summer Street, and Route 17 at Pennacook. I saw some public discourse about many of those fences on social media, and I'm sure those neighborhoods will welcome this greatly. Obviously, that's work that should be done for public safety. It'd be my position to grant C-73. Councilor Cormier?
I can tell you that I've had lots of calls regarding 4, 5 of these particular guardrails that need replacement and fixing. So I am all in, and I am in agreement.
Okay, I'm sure that'll be welcome relief to those neighborhoods.
Yes.
Councilor Angelini? Very well. So the position of the Finance Subcommittee is unanimous grant on C-73. 374, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $349,430.37 be made to the Opioid Stabilization Fund. The same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Mayor requested on May 3rd, I respectfully request an appropriation of $349,430.37 be made to the Opioid Stabilization Fund. Same amount be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. This is from the opioid settlement receipts established by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B. And this is funding effective for fiscal year '23, beginning on May 3rd, 2023. It would be my position that we move forward with this. I check with Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
Mr. Chairman, are you
Yep.
allowing comment?
Yes, of course.
Shouldn't that be reversed? Because you can't suggest putting money into the account that isn't established yet?
Well,
I think it's 2 or 3 down that he's asking for.
oh, I see what you're saying, that the order of the
The order of the
communications.
petitions is
All right,
wrong.
so why don't we do this? Let's put that one on hiatus. And let's go to, let's see, C-76, based on Council Frieda's point. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an opioid stabilization fund be established to account for the opioid settlement receipts that the city is receiving under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B. So in light of our prior action, which may have been a little out of order, it would seem appropriate that we take this up first. And it would be my position to grant C-76, and I check with Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini. All right, so that's established. Thank you, Councilor Frida.
For another point,
Yep,
I know the clerk or the assistant clerk put that it's a majority vote. That is not to establish a stabilization account. You need a supermajority. You
okay,
need
so
2/3 vote.
how about the fund? To establish the fund?
You
You're
don't-
talking about,
Just a majority to put, you have to have a supermajority to take it
for
out.
stabilization, of course.
But you can put
yes.
it in
Yeah.
with a regular.
Right, so the last vote, or C-76 will be by majority. Let's see, so C-75,
C-76 would have to be a majority of the full council.
correct. I think we'll go to C,
Supermajority of the full council. 2/3 vote of the full council.
for C-76? That's just the
Just-
establishment of the fund.
Establish a fund, establish a stabilization account, you have to have 2/3 majority.
Oh, okay. C-75, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the city, I will note that on my agenda, and I'll call the clerk and let her know that. C-75, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the city dedicate all of this opioid settlement receipts to the opioid stabilization fund established under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, effective for fiscal year '23, beginning on May 3rd, 2023. So that would be step 2 out of these 3 communications. It would be my position to grant, Councilor Cormier,
I agree.
Councilor Angelini. And that as well would be by a 2/3 vote, so we'll note that. And then we'll go back to C-74, and that would be to fund it with monies from the stabilization account. That, of course, also would require a 2/3 vote of the full council. And again, I'll ratify or take up C-74. It'd still be my position to grant. Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
I agree as well.
Thank you for pointing out those issues, Councilor Frida. C-77, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request that Joan, oh, that's Ways and Means, so that's not for us, shouldn't be on there. And last but not least would be C-81, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $103,590 be made to the Police Department Replacement Equipment Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency Account. All right, let's see, that was on my phone.
I have it right here.
Oh, you do have it?
Yep.
Perfect. So this was a letter from Chief Kennedy to the mayor dated May 4th, 2023. Dear Mayor, we are still actively in the process of hiring and currently have several potential recruits on a signed civil service list that will have begun the hiring process within the city. This process is fluid as we pretest for physical abilities, mental status, and medical clearance prior to academy placement. With several current vacancies, we will be in the process for a minimum of 2 rounds of hiring, of which this is the 2nd round. Our budget cannot absorb this expense so late in the fiscal year, as we will need to outfit each individual recruit with the required equipment that is specified by the training academy the recruit attends, making the appropriation a necessity. And attached to that, he has a spreadsheet. The balance in that account before this appropriation was $19,191. Obviously, he's requesting $103,590. The cupboard is bare. The chief was in discussing his personnel generally under the prior hearing on the budget. We all know that these officers we're in dire need of them. So it would be my strong recommendation that we grant C-81. I checked with Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini. All right, so unanimous recommendation on the 22nd will be to grant C-81. Does the Finance Subcommittee have anything further?
I don't have anything further.
Councilor Angelini?
No, sir.
Do the remaining members of the council president have any comments or questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion from the Finance Subcommittee to adjourn. Have a second? Councilor Angelini, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.